My name is Alex Jones. I'm a syndicated radio talk show host, a documentary filmmaker who for 22 years has been struggling to try to warn the American people of the fact that a global private corporate government is attempting to take over our planet and impoverish the population as a tool of political and economic control. Our job is becoming a lot easier now because the social engineers are so desperate, they are admitting to the fact that they are trying to censor liberty-based, pro-national, pro-human information across the web. Whether it's Google, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter. They admit that they are trying to block Infowars.com information first and foremost. And if they're able to block Infowars, you can believe everyone else will follow. So again, ladies and gentlemen, now more than ever, it's time to stand for free speech and an open and free internet and to take the information war to the next level. I'm Alex Jones, and we are the Resistance.
There's been an impeachment last year of their president, and she was the handpicked successor of the guy that was sentenced today to 9.5 years in prison for corruption, for money laundering, for taking bribes. That's what needs to happen in America. And we're going to take a look at what's going on, the way they responded, and what will happen here if we ever get a Justice Department that gets serious about coming after these criminals, because that's what's really going on here. As Alex pointed out, this lawsuit coming after Roger Stone and the Trump campaign for the emails that were released by a DNC whistleblower, according to WikiLeaks, and saying that you somehow interfered with the election or whatever. The reality is that all of this noise that they're making is to cover up the crimes of the Democrats and of the intelligence community, which is acting like Watergate burglars. This is a very politicized law enforcement and intelligence community. That's something that we need to be very worried about. Yesterday, we talked about Republicans introducing bills to allow congressmen to carry weapons in all 50 states and the District of Columbia for their protection. Now, this is something that we should all be protected for. We have a God-given right to carry weapons. It's respected by the Second Amendment. But these congressmen understand that they're going to be the first ones they're the most the desirable targets, as they have just seen. They need to understand that when it comes to free speech and to privacy, that they are also the prime targets of this surveillance state that they have created. And they need to shut down that surveillance state. I think some of them are seeing it now. Perhaps they're too compromised, too blackmailed to do anything about it. But just as we saw with the shooting of Steve Scalise and other congressmen at the baseball practice situation, they are also the prime targets for the intelligence community that has become politicized and criminal, violating the law, as the FISA court explained to us, told us that the FBI and the NSA had violated the law, violated the FISA Act, violated the Constitution that they all swear to uphold. I want to take a quick look at what's going on in Brazil, because I think this is the future someday soon of America. We have a former Brazilian president today was sentenced to over 9 years in prison for corruption, for money laundering, for bribe taking. He was found guilty today. And it was just last August that his handpicked successor, he was president of Brazil from 2003 to 2011. His handpicked successor, Rousseff, was impeached last August. And prior to that, the previous November, she had won election with crooked voting machines. So the corruption that we see in Brazil is tremendous. And as we see these people finally going to jail, some people are angry, I think, at the Brazilian president that's there. He may be corrupt. I'm not sure. I'm not up to date on the internal Brazilian politics or the parties that are there. But the current president is also facing trial charges over corruption. But he was able to shut it down. They did not get the votes necessary to bring him up on corruption charges. But going back to the lady who was impeached last August, Rousseff, when she was elected, she was very unpopular. She was a hardcore socialist. These corrupt parties, like our Democrats, are socialists. And she had tanked the economy. She was very unpopular. She was down 10 points in the polls. She was booed at soccer games of 60,000 people in attendance. And then the day of the election, she won by 10 points. And the people who normally did the exit polling, which is the gold standard for seeing if there is massive corruption. So from being down 10 points the day before, she wins by 10 points the day of the election. And there's no exit polling. There's one organization that does it, very similar to the United States here, where we have one polling organization. You notice that when they do exit polls in the United States, they never give you totals. They never come in and say, well, the actual vote total in this area for this candidate was this, and this is what the exit polls told us. No. They give us demographic cross-tabulation, so we can't see that information. It's hidden from us by the one organization that does it. And so they tell us how many women voted for a particular candidate or how many of this particular ethnic group voted for which candidate. But they don't give us the grand total so that we can look at whether or not there's corruption. And, of course, that's what the State Department in the United States uses to look at corruption in other elections. Why is this important to us? Because we use the same electronic voting machines. In many cases, the electronic voting machines were created first in Venezuela by Hugo Chavez. Smartmatic began that way, and they've changed their names a number of times. That's why we're very concerned in places like Texas, where we have the Department of Elections shutting down the legal and constitutional requirements to have an image of the ballot, to have numbers on the ballot so that we can audit the election. That's the way these kinds of crooked people get in. And when we see what is happening there, the kind of blowback that is happening, again, this guy may be corrupt. I don't know. The current president, Michael Timmer, may be corrupt, or it may be blowback, as we would expect to see here in the United States if we ever have a Justice Department that gets serious about coming after these corrupt Democrats who have corrupted our law enforcement, the FBI, the NSA, and our intelligence agencies to use them as political operatives, to use them as Watergate burglars. That's what needs to be shut down. And if we do, we're going to have a war just like they're going on in Brazil right now to get rid of the corruption.
I want to tell you about some of the products at InfoWarsStore.com. We are under constant attack. You know it by now from the mainstream media. They're trying to attack us on every level. Now with the YouTube scandal, they're demonetizing our channels, which again takes a huge chunk out of our income, which is why we always appreciate and rely on you getting the products, because that's how we stay afloat. They can't get to us that way. They can't pressure you to not buy the products. They don't have that power. And that's why you're the key to this entire operation. We have Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste, bubblegum flavor, just arrived at InfoWarsStore.com. This is by listener request. Bubblegum flavored Super Blue toothpaste now available at InfoWarsStore.com in limited supply. Again, if you're not using fluoride-free toothpaste by now, then you're absolutely insane. Harvard studies, it reduces IQ, it causes bone cancer. It's not great, let's just put it that way. And I've been using it for about, 15 years now? So you're going to buy it anyway, why not buy it from us? It's in limited supply, but it is available at InfoWarsStore.com with the new bubblegum flavor, Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste, and it supports this network, which is under constant demonization and attack, because we don't take big fat checks from George Soros. We don't get put on extremist lists even though they want us to. That's how they're taking away the YouTube money. That's why we need your support more than ever, because we're not funded by giant corporations who are now pulling the plug on YouTube as they move it into a TV thing, a Netflix model, to drown out independent voices. So support us by getting the products at InfoWarsStore.com.